It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update as AEW want to sign some more recently released WWE superstars. A major New Japan Pro-Wrestling debutant is set to take on Kazuchika Okada, and is CM Punk heading to New Japan? All that and more coming up in today's video, but first... Yesterday morning, former WCW wrestler Buff Bagwell took to Twitter to reveal that his mother, Judy, has sadly passed away as her battle with dementia came to an end. Bagwell would reveal the news and said, "It is with a heavy heart we must announce that this past Friday, the matriarch of the Bagwell family has passed away. Judy Bagwell was blessed with 3 amazing children, a loving husband, and so many great memories over the years. Thank you to everyone that has asked about her over the years and have kept her in your prayers during her battle with dementia. Judy Bagwell was 78. For those that remember the latter days of WCW, Judy Bagwell was a huge part of Buff's character, and she would go down in wrestling folklore when she was part of the now infamous Judy Bagwell on a pole match between her son and Canyon at the WCW New Blood Rising event. Whilst the match isn't necessarily looked on as a work rate classic, it is still discussed to this day, whether for good or bad. And my condolences go out to Buff and the rest of Judy's family and friends during this difficult time. This past Monday marked the 13-year anniversary of a Ring of Honor match between Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson, and Tyler Black, who is now known as Seth Rollins in WWE. The match would see Omega get busted open before Bryan Danielson picked up the win over his 2 opponents. A fan would tag the 3 men in a tweet to commemorate the match, which led to the AEW World Champion responding, seemingly to continue his past rivalry with Bryan, and he said, "I just wanted to go out and have a great match. Ended up being the first time I had to superglue a cut closed. Seth never did me wrong like you did, Bryan. I won't forget that." Interestingly, Omega has hinted that he and the now Seth Rollins are cool with each other, at least in kayfabe, while staying in character for his ongoing feud with Bryan, which is currently on hold, with Danielson attempting to work his way up the rankings to get his hands on Omega once again. Whilst the fan tagged all 3 wrestlers, Danielson and Rollins are yet to comment, with the latter likely avoiding any interaction with an AEW wrestler, with him very much being a company guy. This week, WWE superstar Kevin Owens would speak to Alex McCarthy of TalkSport during WWE's ongoing UK tour, and he'd reveal some very interesting plans that were eventually scrapped. Owens would say that in 2019 there were plans for him to head back to NXT on a full-time basis. This was before Vince McMahon changed his mind at the last minute, and Owens would say, "At the time, Paul Heyman was in charge of Raw, and those were just plans we had, and Vince McMahon had signed off on all of them, and eventually he changed his mind and nothing happened." That's all it comes down to. What he says goes. It wasn't something I had just floated about, it was a plan that was going to happen, and they just went in a different direction. At NXT TakeOver War Games 2019, Owens made his return to the black and gold brand during the main event, joining Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, and Dominik Dijakovic as their mystery partner against the Undisputed Era in the trademark War Games match. Had Owens stayed, this would have likely been similar to what we saw with Finn Balor, who was a returning NXT star from the main roster during the early days of NXT's move to the USA Network in the heat of the Wednesday Night Wars. NXT would have definitely benefited from a more star-studded roster to compete with AEW, although we all know how that went. This week, AEW President Tony Khan took part in an interview with Wade Keller of PW Torch, where he discussed a number of topics surrounding All Elite Wrestling. Tony would address criticism that he's heard towards the booking of CM Punk, who has avoided any particularly high-profile matches during his time in AEW, instead opting for a slow build up the card. Khan would discuss the philosophy behind Punk's booking and said, "We've been getting Punk reintegrated, building him with a winning streak, and I think it's worked great. When you look at the rating we did for our first Wednesday back, that was a really strong number last week. He is only scratching the surface. I have intentionally, in working with him, tried to hold back a lot of his biggest marquee matches and stories." Whilst it's been great to see CM Punk back in the ring, there is certainly some huge matches fans have been wanting to see, which so far haven't happened yet. Whilst it does make sense to slowly build Punk up to the main event scene, you can't help but feel AEW should have struck the iron while it was hot. Saying that though, I do kind of understand both points of view, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Elsewhere in the PW Insider interview, Tony would be asked about the recent WWE releases earlier this month, with the likes of Keith Lee, Ember Moon and Nia Jax becoming free agents. Khan would reveal that he is indeed interested in some of the newly available names and said, "I do see a few in this wave. I don't want to say who or when I would be interested in them, but I think there's a few very interesting people they've just let go. The same goes in the last wave and the wave before that and the wave before that." The topic of releases would continue, but this time with the discussion of possible releases on AEW's side of things, as they have continued to add talent without letting a ton go due to the pandemic and wanting to keep wrestlers in work. Khan would reveal that the time will eventually come to let people go and said, "Now we're back and there are independent wrestling shows and there's international shows, so there is work in wrestling again, and I can't say I'll be able to keep everybody forever, but I have done my best to try and keep as many people working for as long as I've been able to." Tony would admit that despite launching AEW Rampage and using more wrestlers every week, he won't be able to keep hold of everybody forever, and there will be a time for cutbacks. Although he added that he will not be releasing talent with the frequency that WWE has as of late. And quickly, just before we continue, make sure you drop a like on the video as it helps me out a lot, and make sure you subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content as we head, hopefully, towards 100,000 subscribers. But now, let's press play on the video. Next up, New Japan Pro-Wrestling are set to hold the Battle in the Valley on November 13th and 14th live from San Jose, California, as their expansion into the United States market continues. It was recently revealed that the former WWE superstar Buddy Matthews, then known as Buddy Murphy, is set to make his New Japan debut at the show, although up until now his opponent was unknown. It seems NJPW are set to throw Buddy in at the deep end, with him set to go one-on-one with arguably the best in-ring worker in the world, that being Kazuchika Okada. Following the weekend's Power Struggle event, Okada would call out Matthews during his post-match press conference and would say, "Next, I'll be heading to the USA for a little bit. I'll be leaving the fans here for a little while. The plan is to fire up the ring in America, so next stop, San Jose. Hey buddy Matthews, I'll see you in San Jose. Bring it on, bastard." New Japan have announced that the match has been signed and is official, and it will take place on night 1 of the California show. This is a huge way for Buddy Matthews to make his debut, with him going up against one of the company's biggest stars, with a chance to impress in a big way in his first match. It'll be interesting to see the result of this match and if Matthews will score a huge victory on his debut. And finally, speaking of New Japan Pro Wrestling, this past weekend a brand new IWGP United States champion was crowned when Kenta dethroned Hiroshi Tanahashi at the Power Struggle event. Following the bout, the new champion would call out AEW star CM Punk, planting the seed for a potential match somewhere down the line, and Kenta would say, "I am the new IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion. I don't know if you guys remember what I said, but when I came to New Japan in 2019, I said I'm here to prove who I am. After 3 years, I finally proved who I am. I'm the United States Champion. I just want to entertain you guys. I want to give you guys hope. Hey, CM Punk, I'm ready to put you to sleep." As of this writing, Punk is yet to respond to the challenge, although it seems we are heading towards an official match between the two somewhere down the line. Perhaps we could see Punk at the New Japan San Jose shows, but that does remain to be seen. This match of course stems from the fact that CM Punk adopted Kenta's go-to-sleep finishing move during his time in WWE, leading to the originator calling him out, even demanding royalties at one point. This encounter has been billed as a dream match for years, one which we seem closer to with CM Punk back in wrestling in AEW, whilst Kenta is in New Japan, with the two companies having worked together as of late. And it's also worth noting that this is the first time that both men have been able to go at it since Punk stole the GTS. So could this perhaps be Kenta's title defense at Wrestle Kingdom 16? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And before you go, make sure you check out my video where I discuss what could be next for the WWE releases of November 2021, including Keith Lee and Ember Moon.